Be brave enough to live creatively. The creative is the place where no one else has ever been. You have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. You cannot get there by bus, only by hard work, risking, and by not quite knowing what you are doing. What you will discover will be wonderful. Yourself. Hello and welcome to the Short and Sassy podcast with Simone de Haas, and today's episode, Being Brave. The quote I shared at the beginning of this podcast is by Alda, the star of the hit series MASH and also an author and a well-known exponent of the creative life. What I love about this quote is that it speaks so deeply to the whole creative process and what it means to take a risk and be brave in that process. I run a workshop called Soliloquy, which I use for both actors and for speakers to help them get out of their heads, that ego space, and connect with their heart. As part of this process, the actors in particular have to do what is known as a cold read. They have no previous knowledge of the script, and all they have to do is to look at the lines and just say them, with no preconceived idea of how the lines should be read or, in fact, what the end result would be. Now, the idea behind this activity is that it allows the intuitive process to kick in, to provide insights into the character that otherwise might be missed by a more predictable reading. I remember this particular instance when I was running this workshop. One of the actors was reading the opening monologue from a one-woman show called The Year of Magical Thinking, the story of Joan Didion and her autobiographical account of the year following her husband's unexpected death. Now, the monologue commences as a largely incoherent, confused, rambling, and it does present quite a challenge. It reflects in words the author's precise state of mind at that time. By the time the actress stepped up to do her reading, I noticed that it had a rather mechanical quality about it, and I asked her about her preparation. And she told me, it didn't make any sense to me, so I read ahead to see what happened. Wouldn't we all love a crystal ball, to see ahead, to see what's going to happen, to be able to plan and map out every moment, so that every choice is never a mistake, to never be wrong or to falter or to fail? We are hardwired to learn from mistakes, and yet we often want to avoid them. In the case of the actress, what had happened was that she was more concerned with getting it right than she was in accessing the unknown. She needed to know what the answer was, and by limiting the information coming in and essentially shutting down her intuition, she was only able to get what she was looking for. Now, if she had been just a little braver, she might have found something magical, because it was precisely the author's lack of comprehension and confused state of mind that was so powerful. The actress could have used her own insights, her own feelings and emotions of feeling confused and not understanding what was going on to give a really powerful and congruent reading. When we surrender to what is, it is not about giving up. Rather, it is about being brave, letting go of the need to be right and perfect, or needing to know the answer, and instead allow ourselves to connect with our intuition, our innate knowing. It's okay not to know. Some of the most magical moments I've ever experienced on stage have been when I have completely surrendered to what is happening right at that moment, being present and going with it. Instead of worrying about the many possibilities in any situation, just let go. You surrender when you drop your attachment to a particular outcome because, just like the actress I mentioned, when you release that attachment, when you stop trying to mastermind the result, You align with your creative spirit and provide the space for the answer to manifest. Bravery is not about being right. It's not about having the answers. It's about willing to be uncertain. It's about willing to step into that space where I don't know is the norm. So how can you step into that space of being brave? Learn to recognize in yourself when you are in that energy of that anxious striving, trying to force the issue, trying to make things change and trying to mold them into the way that you believe it should happen. Recognize that that kind of anxious striving is in fact the opposite of surrendering. Those feelings of apprehension, anxiety, tension, competition, and anticipation are all energies that put you into a space of striving to make things happen, trying to force, rather than going with the flow and letting things go. As Timothy Galway says in The Inner Game of Tennis, let go, let it happen. One of the surest ways that we can tap into our creative reality and to surrender is to simply do the work that is in front of us. Sometimes the answer you need is right in front of you, but you need to be willing to start the work first. So how can you begin to be brave when you don't know where to begin? Firstly, become aware of when you are in that energy of that mental striving, trying to force an outcome, instead of sitting in that space of allowing your intuition to arise. Secondly, focus on the task that is in front of you, rather than buying into the energy of, what if this doesn't work? Be willing to make mistakes. They will show you the way forward. Thirdly, maintain a spirit of curiosity. When we are willing to ask questions, to ask what if, instead of having a conclusion about how things should show up, we allow ourselves to step forward into that space of creativity and, yes, bravery. And finally, acknowledge that it's okay not to know, that it's okay not to know how things are going to turn out, and being brave enough to take that step anyway. Being brave requires us to trust, first and foremost, ourselves and the information that is available to us in every moment. To finish off, I'd like to remind you of this wonderful quote from Winnie the Pooh. Promise me you'll always remember that you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to subscribe. You can find me on your favorite podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and also on my website at www.simonedehas.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening.